This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the Antoine Dupont of website builders.
Do you want a hot take? When rugby is played like this, I don't think it matters remotely who we consider the best team in the world. After being mildly deconstructed by the World Champions 1 week ago and headed into the final 80 minutes of an 80-week, seemingly, season, it will be easy for most teams to start looking towards the next one, especially as you start to slip behind in the second half as tanks begin to empty. And yet, Andy Farrell's Ireland are just not that sort of team. The final second of their endless season spent watching not the clock, but the dream come true. Ciaran Frawley's drop goal sailing over the post as the clock strikes 80 to secure an instantly iconic win in South Africa. Durban gave us one of the best games of the year, somehow beating out a banger between Canada and Romania to be the pick of a superb weekend of rugby, coming down to something we'll be seeing again come moments of the year time. This was Test rugby at its best, tight, ferocious, unpredictable, with turns and momentum coming dramatically and seeming to shake the world. The atmosphere and intensity, less an end of season runabout and more a Lions test. That was the feeling, a one-off repeat at peaking intensity that could shape the careers as the Boks learned some hard lessons and Ireland played out what might just prove to be the most important game of the Andy Farrell era so far. So, how did Ireland get in control? How did the Boks get it back? And just why might this game go on to define what this Irish team can become in the coming months and years? Whilst last week the Boks felt maybe 10%, 20% above Ireland at pretty much all times, Saturday's second test felt much more even from the off. Both teams bouncing back at sea level with a game level as could be. Irish intensity up a notch to match the Boks from the very first whistle. And it's evident from that point too. Both matches, first and second test, open in almost identical manners, with Ireland kicking off, sending it deeper than Stuart Hogg's social media is inevitably about to get. Now he's Scotland's most divorced man. I give it 3 weeks before he blames this drop ball on pronouns. And Faf de Klerk hanging a box kick, which Jamie Osborne catches on exactly 24 seconds. However, where in the first test, Quagga Smith strips the ball moments later, giving the Springboks possession, in the second test, Ireland were allowed the chance to instead be themselves. Farrell's Greens are maybe the most system-led side in Test rugby history, certainly the most system-led in the world right now. The whole idea is they have a set of processes and a wide range of plays they can pull from that work basically every time. That no matter what situation they end up in, they've got something that'll work every time. Their playbook is extensive, detailed and stuffed into every player's brain so hard they probably forget their own name. It's on a handful of key playmakers, Crowley, Keenan, Lowe, Hansen, etc., to just select the right setting on Andy's incredible machine, pulling plays from the bucket and repeating the same ideas over and over again. It typically looks like kicking long rather than contestable, playing lots of phases to pull players out of position and hitting similar areas repeatedly, forcing defenders to make several tackles in a row, rugby league style, until they're either fatigued or out of position. In the first test, for a mixture of kicking and breakdown pressure, the Springboks were able to shut down Ireland's system pretty efficiently, pretty effectively, pretty nicely. The Clover Gang had just 3 chances to get into their system, get up and running over the first 70 minutes, crossing 5 phases just 4 times over the entire game of value ball. I went into how they did this last week, but whilst turnovers would be nice, a big, huge part of the Boks game last week just to force Ireland into kicking the ball on the Springboks' terms. In situations where they're going backwards, no chase is set, yet the Bok backfield is fully in position. Springbok terms. Ireland, this weekend, approach it differently, clearly going in with a mindset to ignore the pressure and just play. Following that 24th second catch, Ireland set quickly and Porter makes a positive carry. 1 gain line success in the bank, they go wide immediately. Henshaw's pass is flubbed under pressure, but they keep playing. The South African defence is frankly pretty incredible here. The line speed is remarkable, aggressive yet controlled, but Ireland keep playing. When Crowley does eventually attempt a kick, it's an attacking stab, albeit blocked by Diolande, prompting Murray to hang a superb box kick, regathered by Ringrose. They don't kick until something's set. They don't kick until a chase is ready. They kick on essentially neutral terms. Over the first 7 minutes of the game, there are 20 phases of play, and 19 of them are Irish ball. In the first test, it took Ireland until the 32nd minute to reach 19 phases. Even when the Boks are on top defensively, Ireland forced them to expend enormous energy. Sweat on their faces outmatched only by the blood pouring from countless foreheads. Is willing to keep playing, work the treat, Etzebeth shooting offside and handing Crowley a reasonably regulation 3 points to get the account going. I offered a theory last week that teams who beat Ireland, at least those that come closest, are those who keep them to below 90 phases. They're so fond of wearing you down, as Omani put it when they made Scotland go through 233 tackles in the Six Nations, just 19 off the world record, putting lead in in the legs of the opposition by inflating their tackle count. Ireland's conversion rate is insanely high. They score points on most of their opportunities. 4 chances to get into the system in Test 1 resulted in 2 tries and a penalty for 17 points, and so the fewer chances you give them to get going, to get into that system, to get the machine rolling, the stronger your odds of beating them become, because you're denying them, if that's any average to go by, 4 or 5 points per opportunity. Perhaps fittingly for a game that came down to a last gasp drop goal, South Africa on Saturday kept Ireland to 89 phases of play. They did enough that had the kick gone wide, it would have been probably fair to say the Boks deserved the win, and yet in a game with margins so tight, Ireland's phase count inflated from last week added up. Farrell's 15 converting almost every chance into points, forcing penalties that seemed uncharacteristic for the Boks, such as this cheap offside after 9 phases or ridiculous momentum killer here from Quagga Smith, something he'd never normally do. Because after an early swell from the Irish, South Africa did a frankly incredible job of wrestling momentum off Ireland, taking control and ultimately the lead. It's a frankly masterclass in game management from Handré Pollard. Instead of chasing the game, looking for ambitious passes and running from anywhere, the Boks just tighten up their squeeze on Ireland, leaning into just how system-led they are. There are certain situations Ireland run the same way every single time, and if you know that, and know what they are, and have the raw materials, or as I call them, Ebenezabeths, you can exploit that. However, without an Irish side to train against and a week to learn their patterns, Rassie once again had to get creative. And so he took his players to Squarespace, the most watertight, incredible system he'd ever encountered. With Squarespace, literally anyone, even your uncle, you know which one, could build a website in mere minutes, able to install features so simply. And so what better to prepare for Ireland's incredibly accurate system, their similarly accurate system. For a full session, Rassie asked his players to try and break Squarespace. Try and make a bad website of this. Try and make a website that looks like you weren't really trying. And yet, none of the players could. So seduced by the easy-to-use features, the entire squad had new websites up and running by the end of the training session. Every single one, leaving Rassie to draw up a plan B. They needed a different way to prepare for Ireland. And if you want to draw up a plan B, a beautiful website, you can head to the link in the description and use the offer code Squidge Rugby to save yourself some money as well as some time on building a website, something Rassie got back by sending the Boks to do what they do best, and probably should have seen this coming all along, implementing an incredibly effective and disruptive kicking game. This clearance by Pollard is brilliant, shaping as though he's aiming for touch but instead hanging it in the air, perfectly between Lowe and Osborne, prompting the pair to book a conference room and try to work out who's going to take it. The fullback just about catches, bringing it into his chest, allowing Colby to smother him. Creel is there immediately to make a mess of the ruck, and the kick lands on the far side of the pitch from the scrum, meaning the Irish forwards are there late. They've got to jog so far, having just been putting in so much effort. The Boks defence is already set when they arrive, but looking to generate quick front foot balls so they can play something, McCarthy, drawing Du Toit, tips inside to Doris, who gets over the gain line, but at a cost. The system is built for McCarthy here to clear out, so Du Toit instead just lifts him right away, carrying him away from the ruck and dropping him to ground. It's not illegal, but he knows completely what he's doing. Quagga shrugs off James Ryan's clear out, leaving the ruck undefended. The moment Murray puts hands on, Faf is within his rights to faff the hell out of him. More Irish bodies sucked in here, and Henshaw forced to eventually play 9. Nothing on, Crowley kicks it away. It works. And so, if Ireland run the same system every single time they're in the same situation, South Africa can surely just learn the counter whenever it occurs and do that. It's almost like if anyone remembers the game Punch Out, but with Little Mac traded up for Ebenezabeth, because boy is it effective. South Africa here play wide off a scrum. The Irish forwards working into shape off the touchline just to make the next tackle here before Pollard hangs another beauty back towards the touchline they came from, back towards where the scrum was set. Byrne is the only forward to remain out there, and Aronson just gives him a little shove to get to Nash early, hanging on for dear life, dragging him to ground with Du Toit finishing him off, and Marks entering just to slow down the breakdown. Ireland's forwards have worked side to side and are back to side again, and as such are pretty slow to get into position, with the Bok D set first. But once again, they want to generate front foot ball. They want to generate good ball to play off, or at least kick off, because they're going backwards, so Ireland use the same play. McCarthy, head of the pod, tips inside, this time to Porter, with the lock earmarked to clear out quickly and play off the quick ball. Except Etzebeth holds his opposite number back, Big Joe giving a little shove not similar to the one his namesake gave the Communist Party in 1947. This allows both the police to create a Hollywood blacklist, and Marks sees the means of possession, clamped over the ball and requiring a cunt-strict clear-out from James Ryan, handing 3 points to South Africa, and a yellow card to Caelan Doris instead for some reason, thanks to a brilliant jackal from Malcolm Marks, hanging behind the line, coming in late, timing it perfectly to lock over the ball and steal under McCarthy's nose. Marks is stealing here from Joseph McCarthy. Marks stealing from Joseph McCarthy. I swear to God, some higher power contrived to make this happen purely because they want to see what jokes I'd write in response to it, or possibly because Dalton Tromby got super into rugby in the afterlife and they thought it'd give him a chuckle. Marks seizing possession from Joseph McCarthy. honestly. This is a fascinating game to watch back, because whilst for most of the game, Ireland felt broadly on top. To go back and look at individual passages, the Boks are the team dictating, winning the majority of individual plays. Except with Ireland controlling possession much better than last week, and setting chasers vitally so much better than last week. Having players always in position to chase when they're forced to kick the ball, suddenly, Bok wins are merely neutralising Ireland rather than actively dismantling. If we play on that first example with Frawley's kick, it's actually a really good one, resulting in a Springbok scrum just 5 or 6 metres on from where Pollard set his previous hoof. It's a fairly neutral outcome, the Boks still in their own 22. Ireland's tactics were smart, keeping the ball yes, but knowing when to cut the losses and minimising most Springbok effort into tiny wins instead of enormous yardage for effective kicking and accurate chasers. Once again, the system-led nature, meaning overplaying isn't an option, protocol keeping them moving forwards. Yet, there is one other growing part of Ireland's process we've seen match their phase play for its importance over the last year or so, and that's the 16th thing we now describe as a third set piece. I'm talking, of course, about the goal line dropout. Over the last 90 minutes of rugby, Ireland have scored 17 points from this part of the game. Last week, it was a try for Murray off this gorgeous move. Doris smashes up first phase, Healy and co distract and obstruct tacklers, and Kelleher, disguised in the back, more anonymous than when they ran a similar move with Keenan instead a year ago, breaks the line, putting Murray in for the try. After this lovely break by McCarthy, Ireland sending Nash into 2 carries on the previous phase, leaving Malherbe defending 1 out on his own. The tip-on spinning him out of Big Joe's way. Ireland play a few phases, but where most teams would probably keep playing or at least look to draw a penalty, Crowley is very happy to drop it on the boot instead. Pretty early as well. Pollard is covering the wing, and ex-fullback and Gaelic footballer Robbie Henshaw is confident he can beat his man in the air, but this is far from a nailed-on thing. It's rare teams take this kind of risk without penalty advantage, yet Crowley goes for it. Neither regather, Aaron dives on the ball, and Ireland calmly set back. It's time, of course, for a goal line dropout. Pollard sends it short, but Murray ignores it, letting the ball bounce for Doris to run onto. Same as last week, the number 8 smashes it up, and Shea getting a good contact, but it's irrelevant as the ball is really fast. Test 1, Ireland played a trick play immediately afterwards, this forward pod setting straight off the ruck. So, the Boks watch out. Instead of leaving props in the vicinity as he did last week, they place Quagga Smith and Sia Khaleesi, arguably their 2 best defenders, to shut this shit down. But instead of a fancy move, Porter just carries straight into Khaleesi, just about hitting gain line with Ryan and Kelleher cleaning out cleanly. With these two at the game now, Ireland hit next phase, and this is where the move really begins. Without Smith and Khaleesi, who should be folding to fill their position on this right-hand side but Mbonambi and Malherbe, front row forwards, covering even more ground with only wing and centre out here on their own. Ireland have overloaded them completely. Aaron says keeping half an eye on Nash, leaving 5 players between him and the ruck versus 3 Springboks. Creel is watching Henshaw but adjusts last second as Crowley darts back in against the grain to target the drifting out on Mbonambi. Eyes on the prize, he engages directly. Kelleher, same guy as last week, is running the inside line, so Malherbe, covering a considerable amount of ground and options for a dude his size, drifts onto him. Memories of the move from 1 week earlier. Fresh. Except there's a bonus brilliant aspect. As the ball comes out the ruck, fullback Osborne is here, far side the ruck, and he wraps around late, never in the still adjusting defence's eye line. And the moment he enters it, he's clearly running a boot line, clearly in the back here looking to pass, take the ball from Crowley, give it wide perhaps to Nash. Aronson drifts off, expecting this pass. Creel turns to watch him, except absolute last second, Osborne changes his line, straightening up and going between Mbonambi, drifting onto Crowley, and Malherbe, drifting onto Kelleher. The move is so well rehearsed, Crowley doesn't have to look and Osborne doesn't have to call. Mouth shut the entire time, incognito as he breaks the line. Being one of the best defenders in the world, Creel adjusts quickly, but that's baked into the move. Henshaw is running support, not just a dummy line, and Osborne knows it. Again, not needing to look before throwing the offload. Pollard in the backfield comes to cover him, but Murray once again is running that line that all shit scrum halves are allergic to, taking the offload and running it in, with Van der Fleer also following up just in case. It's a glorious try, bluffing the Boks into covering the move they ran last week and exploiting the cover to score once more. This then became a thing. After Ireland get held up here, Bok players fist pump, but no Irishmen react, aware they've got more to come from their bonus set piece. Except, fully aware of the danger, the Boks have thought it through, they've got the message on, they know what Ireland like to do, and so Pollard's kick is exceptional. This is the best way to possibly counter it, is with the kick itself. It's low, scurrying with very little chance of a decent bounce on it, sent right over the head of Conor Murray, the player Ireland want carrying the least as the scrum half, dying on him at the last second with a nasty bounce so he can't take it on the full. It takes all pace out of the attack. It's brilliant by Pollard, cuts off the chances to run one of those moves almost entirely, except in 1 split second, replacement fly half and soon to be recipient of the most free pints in double in 2024, Ciaran Frawley identifies this and goes for a different sort of free play, hitting a brilliant snap drop goal to get them back within a kick. These drop goals have been a semi-trend since goal line dropouts came in, but I don't think for a second this was Ireland's call or the Soldier song, just an answer Frawley gave, and one that's worth 3 points. And that, for me, begins to demonstrate why Saturday might have been the most important match of the Andy Farrell era so far. I sort of kept this quiet last year in the lead-up because, again, as shit as it is. But if I'm honest, not for 1 minute did I honestly believe Ireland were going to win the 2023 World Cup. I just couldn't see it. Ireland are the most system-led team in the world, and it's got them incredible results. I don't think we've seen a team so capable of producing performances of such a high calibre every single game so consistently since the 2013-15 All Blacks. Ireland's worst game under Andy Farrell is probably still a 7 out of 10 performance, and this is why they've won 2 successive Six Nations titles in a row. They put performances in back to back. They stick to their system, they execute the same high level every week, the system producing try after try and point after point. And so they trust the system. Of course they would. It works. Their system gets them back into games, even gives them control. See, last week, the second half at Twickenham or against Scotland earlier this year. Ireland run the same processes when they're 20 points down as when they're 20 points ahead. And it's what makes them the most consistently brilliant team in the world. They're not reactionary. They're not thinking about the opposition ever. They're doing their own thing. And it works beautifully. However, World Cup winning teams aren't the sides made to win every week, as numerous New Zealanders know to the detriment over decades. They're sides set up with guts who play the occasion rather than just their own game. World Cups are more often won by the most resilient team than the best team in that tournament. Sides who have the bottle and steel to break their game plan open and find a way, rather than just following it blindly. They're teams with players who take games by the scruff of the neck and do what's needed, universally, not those who play good system rugby flawlessly. And for years, Ireland and Leinster's shared player pool has never had this. The best team in numerous competitions, yet time after time, running into another side with more steel in a key knockout game, capable of playing the occasion and not just their game, and willing to do anything as Ireland spend 30 phases battering away at the system they've got such inherent belief in, trusting it will just come good in the end, because it always does. I had every belief Ireland could be the best rugby team in the competition, the 2023 World Cup, but I just couldn't see them winning it. For me, that changed on Saturday. Just over a month ago, a young man called Ciaran Frawley was hauled on at 10 for a Leinster team staring down the barrel of a third successive Champions Cup final defeat. The human sticking plaster deployed to stop the ongoing assault of Antoine. Able to play 10, 12, 13, 15 to a high level, for some time Frawley has been the definition of a system player, and his trust in the Leinster system, which, boy is it similar to the Ireland system, got him into position to first level the scores and then for glory. Frawley, in the biggest game of his life so far, missed twice. 2 drop goals sailing wide that could have given Leinster the 5th star they covet so much. The Froley who took the field on Saturday felt a different player. A month or so on, he still got the same composure and system-led excellence, the same ability to run and manage these plays, but instead of disappearing into himself after what could have been the low light of a career, Frawley has come out the other side determined, motivated, bristling, having clearly channeled any frustration at those 2 chances into metamorphizing into a test match animal. His first drop goal is an amazing individualistic call, a Dan Bigger, Owen Farrell, Johnny Wilkinson, Henry Pollard-esque moment of deciding, no, you know what, I know better than the game plan. A moment of brilliance drilled down the middle, 3 points and Ireland back in the hunt. The system reapplied for a little bit, but when that gets them nowhere, Froley takes the reins once again, calling one of the boldest, most baller plays of 2024. The Ireland way is phase play. It's to keep the ball, to work the meters, maybe eke out a penalty or 2. It's the way they played in those final 3 phases against New Zealand. But that's not the way that Froley fought best. There's 70 seconds on the clock when this ball leaves the scrum, but he's clear in his vision, clear in his plan. The simple loop, his predecessor called 1,000 times, looking to exploit South Africa, playing a lighter front line, with Aronsa and Feinberg and Wazulu in the backfield, auto-expecting a clearance considering Ireland's possession on the field, covering the kick. This gets him into the outside channels, but from there, he backs his pace, he backs himself to get on the outside of Creel. Only one thought in his mind the whole time, checking not where his teammates are, he doesn't glance over once, or even looking at the defenders. He's eyeing up straight ahead, watching the space, watching the spot he's already picked out. Aronsa is on his way up, but he's waiting for Feinberg and Wazulu, who I haven't mentioned much but had a brilliant game by the way, to fire up from fullback, looking to cut off the overlap too low. And so he drops it instead on his toe. He's picked a spot, he's angling towards touch. Feinberg and Zulu has no choice. The kick is perfect. If the fullback leaves this, it's setting up for Lowe, who's probably strong enough to stay in field to regather and give Ireland that huge net gain against a disorganised defence. So he carries it out. Split second decision. At least then, with a line out, the defence is set. Except it doesn't matter. Froley is in the zone. Camera is on him as he makes the big call. And tellingly, he doesn't say pancake ball or drop goal drill free. Froley is doing his own thing when he says, few phases, then dropper. And truth to the word, that's what they do. The drop goal drill is almost perfect. Healy passes the message on to Herring, who delivers a brilliant dart to Burn at the front. No chance of taking, jumping forward into the 5 metre channel to make sure they beat Etzebeth to the ball. They form the ball to get the Boks forwards on the floor, but Omani breaks off immediately. Best carrier Doris smashing over the top as he sends the first bodies into position round the corner, looking to execute with speed rather than accuracy. Henshaw and Osborne filling in as forwards instead of the system-led approach that would have everyone fill in and maybe, a proper hooker carry this ball. Players aren't in the perfect place they used to, but that doesn't matter. Baird gets to ground and Blade digs in instantly. Everybody else is positioned exactly where they have to be. Doris has sprung back up to his feet, taking one glance at Colby, the Springboks' quickest player, to make sure he's directly in his path to block any charge down attempt. Omani here runs some of his typical dark arts, spraying the tight head and stepping over him to elongate this ruck to lock him in for an extra second. By the time he's rolling to his feet, Cock is in the exact channel Colby would want to be in, doing Ireland's job for them, blocking them. And best of all is Frawley's body language, looking away as Baird carries, possibly watching on the big screen instead of looking at the play in front of him. Total disinterest, not thinking about it, not looking at the drop goal, just standing there. He's not getting this ball. It's only as Blade picks up the egg that he almost sprints backwards into perfect position, last second, allowing him to pile that momentum into the kick, striking it perfectly, sweet as you like, down the middle of the pitch through the centre of the posts. The green spot on the bar bisected. If every kick was worth 4 points, this was it, but it wouldn't matter. 2 was all they needed. A perfect burst of game management and execution, followed by the perfect kick, granting a win over the world champions and perhaps a critical step forward to one day taking that title themselves. In Frawley 2.0, reborn after those misses at Twickenham, Andy Farrell might have found the exact player they missed at the 2023 World Cup. A guy who can tear it all up to find a way. A guy who can add resilience to the rugby. A guy who can come off the bench and play the occasion, not just their game. Because this was a day that reignited the debates. The world number 1 and world number 2 slogging it out. Number 2 coming out on top through flawless execution and brass neck play. More than anything else, a game of this quality, this competition, this deep into the longest of seasons, just proves what matters isn't who the best team in the world truly is. It's that what really matters is that we have enough great sides to be having this debate. We have a cornucopia of teams at the minute who can all beat each other, who can give each other games, who can come out on top without it being an enormous surprise. And also Wales. South Africa might remain world number 1, and they deserve to. But the most wonderful part of it all is I'm not sure the gap between number 1 and not just number 2, but number 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on has ever been so small. Thanks for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. There's plenty more on the channel. There's a video on last week's test, the first test. There's one on the first game between the All Blacks and England, providing you're not in New Zealand where it was taken down. There's also loads more on the channel. We're going to have a look at Wales Australia afterwards, now these 2 tests have been played. There's a second channel where we're trying to look at other games. There's not anything going up at the minute because we had to put time and focus onto this one. And yeah, there's loads going on around the channel, is there not?
There is, and when you say we put loads of time and effort into this, obviously us two, you take that for granted, but I'd like to introduce this week's Squidge Rugby work experience intern, Ollie, from Long Eaton Rugby Club. Ollie, how are you? How have you found your experience with Squidge Rugby?
I think it's brilliant. I love rugby, and it's just a nice experience to sort of get into media, get into journalism, watch rugby, and yeah, it's been a good experience.
Rugby?
Rugby.
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 Squidge Rugby!
As soon as I can figure out how he got so big, I'm going to have the same thing done to my chocolate bars. What's your favorite flower, son? Mine's chocolate.